This week in Arsenal, the Gunners beat Bournemouth by 4-0. Kai Havertz nets his first competitive goal for the Gunners. Both Manchester clubs lose, and Declan Rice, Bukayo Saka, and William Saliba all appear fit to play. So let's get into it. Of course, I'm here. I'm Sham. You can follow me at Shamsdale. This is This Week in Arsenal, episode 30. You can follow the pod at This Week Arsenal. If you're watching on YouTube, please be sure to give this a like and subscribe, comment below. And with me, as always, is Sash. I remembered the correct sequence of names this week, which is good. But it's Sash is here with me at LT Arsenal, and we are also joined by the illustrious James, who you can follow at AFC JXMES or AFC James. And it's really great to be here with both of you guys today. And I just wanted to ask both of you, how are you feeling on this fine evening?
Samina. 60 million down the drain. Kai Havertz goes again.
Can I also just say, the way that seems to have... I saw someone mention it, that it had like annoyed rival fans, and I was like, what? I was like, are they joking? Apparently, like, people are so angry about that. I don't understand. Nowadays, people just get angry over anything. It's crazy. What is there to be annoyed at that Arsenal have given a player with no confidence a penalty who clearly has been struggling recently? The fans are going crazy. It's the most wholesome thing ever, seeing some random lady dancing with a kid on top of a guy's shoulders.
Yeah.
What is there to be upset about? People just hate Arsenal so much, and people just have this burning desire to get angry at anything over the internet. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, you need to be really miserable to actually have a problem with something like that. But yeah, welcome to the internet in 2023.
Do you know? Do either of you two know what the annoyance is about?
I just think it's Arsenal fans having a nice moment. That's it. I think that's the problem. Like, even with North London forever, like, I don't get it. Like, what the hell? It's like,
Are they calling it cringe then? Is that what they're saying?
no, they're not saying it's cringe, but they're like, it's just ridiculous what Arsenal are doing. It's more like it's not about cringe, but I just think they don't like it and they think it's something stupid.
I saw someone saying like, oh, why did Arsenal ever do this with Pepe? Because Arsenal were like 10th in the league with Pepe. We're not going to start chanting when we're losing 2-0 down at Bournemouth, are we? Like...
Yeah. Also, can I just mention for Pepe, he hadn't scored for Arsenal, I think, in his first 5 or 6 league starts, and we were playing against Villa, and normally Aubameyang is a penalty kick taker, and we were 1-0 down in that game, by the way, and I think we also had a sending off. I think it was Maitland-Niles who got sent off, if my memory serves me right. And Pepe takes the penalty. He was given the penalty and he scores. The crowd gets up and they support him. And Pepe was getting a lot of support, even into his second season. When he got that sending off against Leeds, I remember Arteta was like, oh, Pepe led the team down. And everyone, including myself, sort of jumped on Arteta and were like, no, this guy's a new guy. He's trying to settle in, give him the confidence. People back Pepe a lot. And I just think people have short memories and they're trying to rewrite history a bit here. But anyway, it was a lovely moment and an absolutely amazing Sunday. But Sham, how are you? How was your last few days?
It's good. Like I mentioned to you, I'm kind of starting a move. It's just up the street, but we're packing up the apartment and kind of moving some stuff into the new place today and for the next few days. So that's been happening. Also found out I might not have internet for the next 2 weeks, so that's going to be fun to navigate. But yeah, no, I mean things have been good, and I think at least the opening games on Saturday were a really great way to start the weekend. So yeah, feeling a lot better. I've been feeling good about Arsenal, this whole season so far, but I'm definitely feeling better about things than I might have felt, shortly after the Spurs game or, even heading into the Brentford match.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think weeks are always better when Arsenal win in the weekend. You don't have anything to be angry about. You can go into Monday morning with a smile to work. So, yeah, I think it was a nice Saturday. And as you mentioned, the seeing Manchester City losing, seeing United losing as they always do. City was a huge surprise, but United, it's just any other weekend.
And
Uh,
can we just speak about the whole when we're saying, oh, it's nice to go into a weekend not feeling bad after losing. We also haven't lost this season. So these bad days have been draws. These long weeks when everyone's been upset has been because of a draw, not even because of a loss. And to
yeah,
put it in context, we're 1 point behind Man City in first place, and we have the perfect opportunity next week. And
yeah.
ultimately, it's down to us. So I, if you're a script writer, you this is exactly how you'd want the game to go into it. And obviously, I'd rather be top of the league with every single game won, but what
Mhm.
a beautiful opportunity to leapfrog Man City by being in our home place for the first time in however many years, because it's really needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you said gave some good perspective because fans, including myself, sometimes when a result doesn't go our way, maybe we react to it too emotionally. And I remember those few years ago, we also drew 2-2 at home to Spurs. This was 2019, I think. And it was the season we signed Pepe. We drew 2-2 and we were like, that was a good fighting performance, a lot of positives to take. Let's go into it. But now it's the end of the world, you know. And for Spurs, it's like that best result of the season. I've never seen people celebrating a draw, as Andre mentioned as well. Like I've never seen a fan base celebrate a draw to that extent. But I think yeah, that perspective that you gave, I think people like me need it definitely when things go a bit south. But on that note, I want to get into the weekend's game, and honestly, this is the sort of game I wish we could see every week. I think it was very low stress personally. Arsenal absolutely dominating the proceedings throughout the game. Bournemouth didn't really create any clear cut chances where I thought, like, oh my God, they're in and they're going to finish. They didn't have anything that clear cut. Arsenal were all over them. And overall, it was a clinical display. It could have even been more than 4-0. But I thought it was a proper performance from Arsenal, and this is something that we definitely need to take into the game against Man City. We have Hassan here. I don't know if it's HA Football on Twitter. Is it you, my friend? Even if it's not you, hello. Thank you for tuning into our show. Um, but yeah, James, I wanted to get your thoughts on in general how commanding we were, and as well to win 4-0 away from home is huge, you know. And even if it's Bournemouth or not the biggest team, to score 4 goals is a statement. And Arsenal, to be honest, usually stop after 1-0 or 2-0, but we kept going and got 4 goals, which also helps our goal difference. So, what are your thoughts in general about it?
I think it really does so offer some perspective on how far we've come, because in previous years, just away from home, we are this incredible team. We've still yet to concede a goal away from home this season, I believe. Um, and it's frustrating that we can't do this at home. Hopefully, our fortunes will change soon. But we are just such a classy team away from home. We're able to control the game. We're able to control our emotions. And you can see almost away from home, it's almost like that is exactly what Arteta's telling them to do away from home and at home. But it only shows away from home because we're too, to use Gary Neville's terminology, we're too emotional. The crowd gets behind us, we get excited. So we're trying to play too vertically. We're trying to do the wrong thing, take on the man because the crowd's telling them to do so. Um, it was just a classy performance, as I say. And what I really liked about it was we were very, very efficient in the final thirds. It's interesting because a lot of people who've rewatched the game have actually said that despite what you'd think, we weren't as effective in the build-up as we have been previously. But
Hmm.
what we managed to do was every time we got into the final third, we converted that into a chance, because you're right, we won 4-0 and it could have even been more. We had plenty of chances. Um, and if we're going to win the title, if we're going to challenge for the title, that is the standard that has to be set. We can't be faffing around in front of goal every week. And
Hmm.
look, we're not going to get 2 penalties every week, but we were much more direct and calculated than in previous games where we've been very, I don't know, just a little bit lackluster in the final third, not being able to make the right decision. And I think Odegaard stepped up his game as well today. We
Yep.
know that yesterday, sorry, we know he's always got the ability to find the pockets and shoot, but his creative display was as good as we've ever seen. So yeah, lots and lots and lots of positives to take from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you nailed it. I think, as Intranil Das has also commented here, the control we have over games has grown exponentially. And as you mentioned, it's mainly away from home, which is quite interesting because most teams would do that at home. But I think it also goes to show you that if you're able to do it away from home, I think doing it at home is something we can work on and can fix. I think controlling your emotions is something we can get better at as we age, as we have more bad experiences, because you learn from that, and you get better. And as you mentioned as well, there were a lot of good performers yesterday, and Martin Odegaard was one of them, and we will get on to him in a bit. But Sham, I firstly wanted to get your thoughts on the game as a whole. Was it the most relaxing game Arsenal match that we've seen in a while? Because I know even at Everton and Palace, we played with good amount of control, but still it's 1-0, and 1-0 in the Premier League. You're always a bit stressed about, it just needs that one set piece or one bozo moment from some player of ours to cost us the game. But Bournemouth, it was super chill, man. Like, what did you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of my takeaway from this game is that in multiple ways, Arsenal really did everything they could to calm the nerves. Not just within the team, but also across the fan base. We were entering this game. Excuse me, we were entering the game kind of thinking about the injuries that we had, right? And we were worried: was Saliba going to play? Was Rice going to play? The injuries. Was Saka available? Are we putting too much of a load on Ben White? Things of that nature. And when the lineup came out and Saliba was playing and Rice was playing and Saka was playing, there were concerns about why is Jesus out on the left wing. And by the way, I had those concerns as well, and I voiced them repeatedly. So, I'm not really calling anybody out, but that's just what we were doing. We had Jesus on the left wing, and we had Nketiah playing center forward again, which hadn't really worked out against Spurs. And, people were worried about that as well. And, we've had the bozo moments this season. We've unnecessarily kind of given away control at certain moments of the game. And yeah, I mean, it was just cool as you like. The guys who came back from injury, the key pieces of this team, I think those guys I listed, Saliba, Rice, Saka, those guys along with Jesus are probably our four most important players at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And, they came in, they played great. I would say Rice was maybe a little bit quieter than we've gotten used to, but it was still, like a 7.5 out of 10. And yeah, they did great. And Nketiah kind of, really redeemed himself for what I think was a poor performance at Spurs. And yeah, it was a performance that was filled with professionalism and togetherness. And while you have Manchester City losing to quote unquote the Korean guy, and you have Manchester United continuing to look like an absolute dumpster fire. And, by the way, I saw someone ask on Twitter, is Chelsea better than Manchester United? And I think that's a legitimate question right now. And yeah, so, and even Spurs, Ange is the media darling, and they still needed 2 red cards and, a wrongly disallowed goal and a super lucky last second own goal to beat Liverpool at home. Just to see Arsenal look the way they did on Saturday while all these things are happening around them, it was really encouraging for, where we are as a club and as a team that's looking to compete for the highest honors. So, yeah, I mean, excellent performance. And I feel great about where we are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. I don't think there was a player on the pitch who had, you can say, a bad performance. I think everyone was at least a 7 out of 10. And yeah, I thought the first half dominated, deserved to be 2-0 up. And there was this moment in the second half which we absolutely have to discuss about. And it was Arsenal won a penalty at the beginning of the second half. Initially, Gabriel Jesus steps up to take it, but then Martin Odegaard whispers in his ear, and they opt to give the ball to Kai Havertz, who obviously, as some people are making fun of him, has gone 0-0-7, and he needs that goal. So the players do the nice thing. They give him the ball. He takes the penalty. And I really enjoyed the celebration after, because you can see sometimes that maybe Kai Havertz does not or is not enjoying the game enough sometimes. Like even after he scores, he was like he had a bit of restraint even in his celebration. But his teammates was like, "Come on, man, you scored! Be happy! Like celebrate, show some joy." And sometimes I think that maybe Kai Havertz, Chelsea killed a lot of the joy that he has when he plays football. Chelsea and their fan base, especially online. And it seems to me like Havertz is the sort of player who also checks some of these
Yeah.
online comments. So you saw during preseason as well, like he was getting mocked for, I think there was some challenge that they do in America, I think, where he was being asked to kick the ball into baskets or those holes. And
It was the cross volley challenge.
thank you. That
Yeah,
I
yeah.
might have got that word, but yeah,
It
thank you.
was silly. You didn't need to watch it.
Yeah, yeah. And the funniest thing is he won it as well, and still he got mocked for a few fails, so as to speak. And then he scored after the game, and he put a caption saying "Have it" uh, after he scored his first Arsenal goal. So I think he is the type of guy that reads online comments, and I think look, Arsenal Twitter, they're not saints, but I think Chelsea Twitter is a different level of toxicity. Like the way they have treated guys like Mason Mount and Kai Havertz.
And that's a man who scored a Champions League final
Exactly.
winner. That is, it's insane to me. I can understand being frustrated with him. I can understand maybe not wanting him your team, but the extent of the abuse that he got after scoring them a Champions League final winner is absolutely absurd. He should be a cult hero at that club. And yeah, the way he is and was treated is pathetic. So, which is why I've been one of the big advocates. He has frustrated me so much at times, but why can't we? What's the danger of getting behind him and just saying, look, what's the negative of going, you know what, whether I agree with it or not, let's get behind him and see how he can do. Because you're right, he does look sheepish on the pitch. He looks shy. He looks afraid to make mistakes because they're going to be clipped and posted online. And I know people go, oh, Kai Havertz won't see that. It's plastered all over the internet. So, yes, of course he sees it. Footballers are young. Footballers have social media. They see
Yeah.
these things and it's not nice. So I think when he scored that penalty, there was a massive wave of relief over him.
Yeah.
And even if it just puts to bed that the 007, etc., that will, I think, have an effect on him. And now he will be in the final third, not thinking, okay, I need to score here. He'll be thinking, right, what's the best decision? So I don't know, maybe I'm completely making this up, but I'd like to think and hope it can have a positive effect. What it will come down to, I think this needs to have a ripple effect. This needs to lead to something else. If it goes another 3 weeks without him doing anything, then any momentum will be lost. But if he can kick on from this, then I think it will really start to make a difference for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's something to the idea that Havertz was maybe a little traumatized from his time at Chelsea. And, you saw in the opening weeks of the season where he didn't really do anything that you could categorize as taking a risk, right? I think back to that Fulham game where he received the ball with a good chunk of space behind him for him to turn into and run, and he just wall passed it backwards, and we lost the ball because that was the easy thing to do. That was the low risk option. So I think it's really encouraging that Havertz, I think the first time he really takes a big risk and steps up to a penalty spot. If he'd missed that kick, the internet would be going wild with this today. Like I would be legitimately worried for Havertz's Arsenal career if he had missed that penalty, not because of my opinion of his skill level or anything, but just because of the amount of pressure and abuse that would have been on him had he, hit that shot wide or over the bar. So I think it's a good reinforcing message for him to step up to the spot. And he knows what would have happened if he missed that kick, right?
Yeah.
I think it's a good reinforcing message for him to step up to the spot regardless and take that chance and put the shot away. And, he had his teammates celebrating with him. He's off the mark. So I think that's a lesson that he can take back with him is I just need to take more risks. I need to try more forward passes. I need to, charge at defenders with the ball, make them make decisions. I need to take more shots. And, hopefully that will lead to more good things for him.
Yeah.
What just a little bit off topic, but what I was actually thinking about the other day was What with Havertz, what is interesting is there's always those players who are so persistently selected by managers. No matter who the manager is, they're always selected. So Xhaka was it like it for us. So under Wenger, Emery, under Arteta, everyone was like, "Oh, this guy's not good enough," and he continued to be selected. And there's always a reason behind that. And I think Havertz is almost quite similar in that sense. Whereas for Germany, for Chelsea, multiple managers have persisted with him and backed him and supported him. And the average fan will see it and say, I don't understand. He's not contributing. He's not doing anything. He's not a good footballer. If Arteta is able to get a tune out of Havertz the same way he did Xhaka, very different players, I understand. But if he is able to say, right, I'm going to put all my faith in you, I'm going to play to your strengths, then it's possible that we could see a similar arc in his career. Because if there's any case study for a redemption arc, I think Xhaka's quite a good one.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of other Arsenal midfielders as well doing it, like Martin Odegaard, for example. When he was initially at the club, I think he signed in January of 2021, and till May he had like one goal for Arsenal. Then he was signed.
Everyone was calling him passive, and that's exactly the same label that Havertz has been given.
Exactly, right? And when Odegaard was signed permanently as well for 35 million, it's not like he set the world on fire immediately. And people are like, oh, we should have signed Madison, we should have signed Buendia and all of these guys. And for 2 months, Odegaard was not even starting for Arsenal, and the guy playing instead of him was Lacazette. And finally, Odegaard comes back November of that year. I believe he scores against United, scores against Everton, and scores against Southampton, and then gets like a couple of assists against Leeds. And he just goes on this run where he's just come to life. And it's taken him a while to get that. And now I know people are going to say that for a 65 million signing, you don't have that sort of time. But Kai Havertz is not the guy who picked his own price, and he's also a footballer who's adapting. And that price tag is what the club decided to pay for him. So if you have any criticism over that, maybe you can criticize the club for saying, why did you spend so much on Havertz? You could have maybe signed someone else. But just looking at Kai Havertz, the player, Kai Havertz, the human being, you just need to let him settle in, and give him the time that he deserves. And the problem is people always give me extreme examples like Willian, for example, who was a free agent, and they're like, Arteta persisted with him for so long and made a mistake. Don't blindly back him for Havertz. But I think Arteta has got more right than wrong, and that has to be acknowledged. And
also, if we look at the Willian situation anyway, he was generally picked over Pepe. And it could be argued that Willian right now is a better player than Pepe. So who's to say that Arteta was wrong in that? I know everyone preferred Pepe as a player and they'd much rather see us lose with Pepe. But if Willian was a more effective footballer, then Arteta was justified in that. And ultimately, the whole team was rubbish. So Willian was never going to turn around that ship on his own. He's not that kind of player. He was a part player in a system which was already bad. And the last thing I just want to say on the Havertz thing, it is quite funny that Chelsea fans are so deflective and give it out to rivals when a player like Caicedo, 115 million, Enzo as well. What evidence do we have to say that they are good footballers? Because people will talk you a pivot, a 230 million pivot should be able to effectively dictate games on their own. And they've just been nowhere near that. So what are they going to get any attention? Or are we just going to keep saying, wow, look at that Enzo pass. He did a crossfield ball. Wow. Where's the accountability?
For me, the worst thing is that Chelsea, they'll be on this 5 or 6 game winning run. They'll win one game against Luton at home. And then you start seeing tweets like Enzo's best midfielder at the Premier League. I'm like, oh my God, do these guys even watch?
And also, like Havertz is doing this not scoring thing in a team that is winning. So he's still contributing to us winning. Yeah. Chelsea are trying to big up their players when they're losing. For what? Doesn't make sense.
I'm so sick and tired of people because, I'm trying really hard to back Havertz and I really do want him to succeed. So, these opening weeks when he hasn't scored and he hasn't assisted, I've still been talking about, his duels and what he does off the ball and the runs that he makes. And, I still think he does a pretty good job of at least progressing the ball into wide areas. And people will just tell me, oh, that doesn't matter. Like, he's not scoring. Like, no one cares about duels. That stuff wins you games. Winning the ball, overcoming those contested duels, winning your aerials, like those are the things that can help turn the outcome of a match. Like I would,
Also,
yeah,
people go, we didn't pay 65 million for someone to win duels. All right, if he was a centre midfield, if we signed Lucas Paqueta or an equivalent, a tough tackling, if we signed Caicedo and we were banging on about duels, people would go, oh, brilliant, he's winning duels. Because it's Havertz who used to be a striker and is now playing as a number 8, everyone's all of a sudden going, no, he has to be scoring a goal a game. It's a weird, and I agree, he isn't scoring enough. He should be scoring more. I don't doubt that at all. But why can't we judge him? People's like, you can't judge him in the same way you judge Xhaka. Hold on, he's not a midfielder. He's an attacking midfielder. He's an attacker. It's like we're winning games. That's all that matters.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as long as we are winning games, it also gives Kai Havertz more time. I think the problems start when we lose a couple of games and the spotlight's on him. But I also think it should not be on him. And I think people need to realize we're moving on from Xhaka and Thomas Partey. Whatever you say about them, they're a midfield pairing that's got us to like 84 points, and they played an integral part in doing that. Obviously, Arteta feels that there's a ceiling with that midfield pairing. And if we are to defeat Man City, we need to evolve how we play. And between moving on from them and evolution, I think there is going to be maybe a bit of an adaptation phase where things are not always perfect all the time. And I think Havertz, not only is he playing a new role, he's also adapting to changes that are happening at Arsenal. And I think it's a combination of reasons why he's not started as well as maybe people thought he might. But I think it's only a matter of time. And I think once he starts scoring, once he gains that bit of confidence, bit of love for the game back, I think people are going to see him score goals. And for me, the worst part is that against Brentford, the Carabao Cup, I thought he played a good game personally. I know not everyone thought that, but I thought he was good personally. I know for a fact that if he scored that game, that would have altered people's perception of his performance. And I think because he doesn't score or he has a bad chance miss, that makes people estimate his performance to be much worse than it actually is. So, yeah, I think for him, it's about putting the ball in the back of the net and just showing people that, hey, I am an upgrade on Granit Xhaka in the final phase of play, and I can get my head on the ball or my leg on the ball to score some goals. So, I do think he has the right team to do that, though. And I do think that he has the right midfielder next to him in Martin Odegaard to maybe help him get into certain positions. And we saw against Bournemouth, Martin Odegaard, who I want to speak about, he was giving Arsenal more control. I'm not against him shooting a lot, but I think this season he's been shooting a lot. He's been a bit rust in his play on certain occasions. But I think after the game against PSV, yesterday against Bournemouth was Odegaard's best game of the season. And he gave Arsenal a lot of control. Like he was dropping really deep when required, the odd time even receiving it from the goalkeeper, from the centre back. And he was not just playing advanced, looking to score. He was actually facilitating play. And I think when Odegaard does that, he plays at his best because I feel that he's a player who needs the rhythm of the game and he needs to constantly feel the ball, touch the ball. And when he constantly has the ball, I think Arsenal also play better. So I think Martin Odegaard might be our most important player. Like when he plays well, the team plays well. When he doesn't play well, the team does not play well. So from that point of view, I think he's probably one of our most important players. And yesterday, obviously, he absolutely bossed the midfield and he had probably one of his best games of the season. But James, I want to get your thoughts on Martin Odegaard, the player. There's obviously been a lot of discourse on him in recent weeks from some sections of the fan base. But maybe he's not always creative enough. We're going to need, I don't know, more verticality from Vieira. Maybe we need Smith Rowe on that side to offer Saka an overlap. But say what you will, Martin Odegaard is probably our most consistent attacking midfielder like in a long time.
Absolutely, and I think also a lot of the what people don't think about is when you look at chances created stats, it obviously depends on how much players around you are shooting. So Martin Odegaard is one of our highest volume shooters. So the player next to him, Saka, who's passing to him most often, will get a chance created every time he shoots. Bruno
Mhm.
Fernandes gets a lot of chances created because he passes it 5 yards to Rashford, who pings the ball from 30 yards miles away from goal. So there's so much nuance in the chances created stat that casual fans don't understand, and also the very obvious fact that set pieces aren't accounted for. So Trippier, Maddison, Bruno Fernandes are top three for chances created, and they all take effectively all of their team set pieces. Whereas I think he took one against Bournemouth, maybe the goal for the Ben White one, he took that set
Yeah,
piece. But
yeah,
generally, Saka and Martinelli take our corners. Odegaard doesn't actually take corners.
yeah.
So that is probably 30% of a lot of players' chances created. So if we're just going to look at stats, and it's easy to say, oh, look at the stats, but he's a creative player. Watch 90 minutes of him play, and this is why rivals don't get it. Watch 90 minutes of him playing, and you'll understand that he's a very, very creative player. He does the pass before the pass. And we
Mhm.
saw it against PSV. I don't believe he got an assist that game. But he controlled the game. He playmade the whole game, and I just think the rival fans' disrespect. I kind of understand their rivals; they're jealous, but Arsenal fans disrespecting him really annoys me because he was. I said it before, and I'll say it again. I think he was top 5 players in the Premier League last season. I think he was very much in the running for PFA Player of the Season until we didn't win the league and Haaland ran away with the goals a bit. But the disrespect he gets from our fan base, I think, is pathetic. The other thing is he's with his shots. I acknowledge maybe he's shooting a tiny bit too much, but a lot of these shots are given as corners, are given as
Mhm.
Saka scoring a rebound, are
Yeah.
given as goals. So yes, there's a fine balance, and I think he's still coming to that because especially when he's in the team with Havertz, for example, who's quite shy to shoot. Nketiah, I think Odegaard performs a lot better with Jesus than he does with Nketiah. So these sort of things definitely apply to Odegaard, and I just think he's a tremendous footballer. I don't understand how people see it any other way.
Yep, no, for sure. And I think he didn't have his best game against Tottenham, and
No,
I think,
I agree. I agree. He was very, very sloppy and gave the ball away far too often.
yeah, absolutely. But surely that's just a one-off because it's not a very common Martin Odegaard game. Like I would say, out of 38 games, maybe 4 or 5 games in a season, he's not so good. But when you're good like 85% of the time, I think that just shows how good you are. And also the fact that the moment he drops off a bit, the entire team suffers. I think it just goes to show you how important he is. I also remember the Europa League last season. I forget who did we get knocked out by? The Portuguese team, right? Was
Sporting.
it
Sporting.
Sporting? Sporting, yeah. I remember we were not controlling the game well. Like we were playing Vieira initially, and there was a lack of control. And once Odegaard came on, he just grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck. And I mean, we looked really promising to score. We were unlucky not to score. And of course, we got knocked out. But I think that game sort of encapsulated that what is life without Odegaard and what is life with Odegaard. And I think Odegaard gives us an element of control, Sham. So, what did you make of his performance yesterday? Obviously, we were quite critical of him in the North London derby, but thought yesterday he really redeemed himself and showed the world that he is probably the best attacking midfielder in the league after De Bruyne, of course.
I think he had about as close to a perfect performance as you could ask for
Hmm.
after his display against Spurs. Right, he had a goal, he had an assist, he had I think it was 1.17 expected goals and expected assists combined, 89% passing accuracy. Yeah, I mean he was running the show, and I think it's him and Saka so far who are kind of our end product machines so far. Saka has, depending on whether or not you count the Spurs' own goal as an assist, Saka has 8 or 9 goal contributions so far this season. I think Odegaard has like 6 or 7. Right, he's not that far behind, and I think it's just Odegaard is evolving into that attacking midfielder who, yeah, he plays the pass before the pass, but I think he's right there in terms of being one of those guys who's in amongst the goals. And I think people, you said this earlier on in the pod, like, people have short memories about what we used to be, what we used to kind of deal with as a team. We used to not have midfielders who contributed to goals at all, right? And we used to go entire seasons with our midfield combining for anywhere between 5 and 7 goals. I'm talking like all three players would not combine for more than 5 to 7 goals. And Odegaard already has 4 this season. So, I think that's really important, and I think he's just a guy who makes our attack click. And he and Saka have such an amazing understanding. Those two make each other better. So I thought he was great against Bournemouth. Really kind of helped us kick things into another gear attacking wise. But I also think that as a captain, I don't think we can ask much more from a guy in that position. And we've seen this over the last couple games, and of course over the last season and change now that he's been wearing the armband. The guy supports the team around him, right? I know Arteta kind of started this, but Odegaard really has been a big part of fostering that togetherness and almost that brotherhood that the players feel between each other now. And it's really nice to have Declan Rice, who I think is right on board with that message as well, and maybe might be a lieutenant to Odegaard and Arteta in that regard. But after the Brentford game, you had Odegaard, shoving Sego Jr. in front of the crowd and telling him to, take his roses, and pushing El Neni in front of the crowd and telling him to, kind of accept his welcome back cheers. And, he was involved in the discussions to let Havertz take the penalty. And he kind of walked up to Havertz afterwards and, gave him a few encouraging words in the ear as well. He's probably one of my favorite players on and off the pitch for Arsenal. And I think he's just a big part of not only what we're trying to achieve on the pitch, but who we're trying to be as a club. And I think that's so important.
But Sham, do you not think we should have a big, strong and shouty captain? We need a captain who's 6'4" and is going to grab people by the throats. Why should we have a captain who's a softie like Martin Odegaard? That's ridiculous.
I think people don't realize that there's multiple ways to lead, right? And you can't make someone be a different kind of leader than they are. And I do think you need multiple guys in that locker room who are helping steer the direction, and that's why I love Declan Rice, among other reasons, obviously. But that's one of the reasons why I love having Declan Rice, because he's more of that guy, right? Who, if we're in a bad spot, I think he's one of the first people who's really going to get in people's faces and be like, you need to step it up. You need to kick it up a notch. Where's the player that I know, right? But I think Odegaard is more of a guy who tries to support the players around him and tries to lead by example. And I think that's equally important.
But isn't that just a perfect balance where the person in the limelight is not the one that's going to lose his head? It's this almost model professional. And then the guys like Gabriel, the guys like Rice, they can do the motivating in the dressing room. They can chat to the team before the game. They can get in the ref's face. They can stand up for their teammates during a fight. But when it's someone who needs to have a level head, when it's someone who's going to speak to the media in times of distress, that's where Martin Odegaard is such a perfect representative of the club. And I think that setup is perfect for us. And I think it's very old-fashioned that people dismissed it in such a way when it first happened, and said Gabriel should have been captain, as if Arteta doesn't know that dressing room better than any of us.
Yeah. Also, I just want to say that, like, when I watch Odegaard's interviews, it puts me to sleep because this guy gives the most boring answers.
He's Arteta's son.
I don't know if you saw that segment that he did with Arteta, like it was, I think, for 3 minutes or something.
I know what you mean.
It was the most boring, generic answers that you could ever expect. But I think that's also really good because you look at our last 3 captains. You have Koscielny, who was obviously a great servant to the club, but the way he left, and then the announcement video where he just flung the Arsenal jersey was a bit bitter, you can say. And then you had Granit Xhaka, who, of course, had that incident against Palace where I think the fans were also to blame, but he also maybe did not act in the best way, and he threw that armband. So that was Xhaka. And then obviously we had Aubameyang, who was always late to training, had some other discipline issues, and the club dealt with him. So I think Martin Odegaard is now the perfect guy because he's so non-controversial. And I'm not saying he doesn't have personality, because I think he does actually have good personality. And we saw it St. James's Park last year when the chips were down. It was Odegaard who stepped up, grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck there, scored a goal, and I thought he was amazing that day in a tough away ground. Probably the toughest away ground in the Premier League after like the Etihad, at least as of last season. So I think the way he grabs the game in certain moments is phenomenal. So he does have character, but his personality is also to be like non-controversial, just keep things simple. And yeah, I think that's a huge contrast to some of the captains we've had in the recent past. So really happy with him, and yeah, I'm sure he'll play an integral role, and even maybe integrating someone like Declan Rice into the club. And yeah, super happy with him. So he was a huge positive, of course. And now I want to get into another topic, which is not really related to the Bournemouth Arsenal game, and I've been wanting to discuss this. It's basically the Liverpool Spurs match, right? The officiating in that game. So, and I know it's hilarious if you're not chatting about how the officials let down Arsenal. You're speaking about how the officials let down another club, and in this case, it was Liverpool. But as a football fan watching that, I thought Luis Diaz was clearly onside. And again, we saw it against Brentford when we played, by the way, last season. These guys forgot to draw lines, and that's literally their job. Like, if you look at the job description, if you want to be a VAR clerk or whatever, the first line would be draw lines, and they didn't do it. So, like, Sham,
Have you heard the official explanation as to what happened, Sash?
oh my god, yeah, I read that.
It's worse.
Not,
It's worse
Yeah.
than
oh
them
my
forgetting
god.
to draw the lines. They did. They checked it, and they went check complete. He's onside, but they didn't say check complete. He's onside. They said, "Yep, we're happy with that. Check complete." And the ref goes, "All right, Liverpool free kick." Liverpool take the free kick, and the VAR guys go, "Whoa, whoa, 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 guys! We said check complete. It was a goal," and the ref's gone, no, it was disallowed. It's a free kick." And then what I think is the most ridiculous thing of all is the lack of common sense and the lack of I just fail to understand how in that situation they can't go, hang on a minute, we fucked up. Instead of fucking up even worse, we're going to
Yep.
stop it here. We're going to go back a minute. We really badly messed up. That should have been a goal, because they knew it should have been a goal, but they proceeded to go, actually, the technicality of the rule suggests that if player's been restarted, you can't give the goal. And it's crazy. I don't understand how in that position someone doesn't have the human understanding of, wow, why don't we say, hold on, who's going to get really angry with us if we just say, look, I know you took the free kick to restart play, but we messed up, give the goal. But now it looks terrible on them. And Darren England was in UAE a few days before. Things like this are getting brought up. Yeah. I don't believe it's down to corruption, but it's a terrible, terrible look for them.
I mean, they're not helping themselves, are they? Like, if they do stuff like this, obviously it gives people who go down the conspiracy route even more ammunition to attack them with. So, Sham, what needs to change? Because constantly we hear these apologies from them, but apologies are not going to give you points. So what I thought might be the way forward is like how the FA, they charge fines left, right, center, The moment Arteta shows a bit of passion, he gets fined, he gets booked.
I think Liverpool were fined. I think Liverpool were fined after not conducting themselves in the right order, because they've been robbed of that.
And Klopp did not say everything he could have said in that press conference, by the way. He held back.
He showed a lot of stoicism in the press conference. I was watching it. He was like just full restraint, because I know the Klopp of 2 years ago would have absolutely unleashed. But I think that sort of sums it up. Even a guy like that who's so passionate, he's sort of numb by all the nonsense these officials do season in, season out. So what should change, Sham? Like, is it the whole system, or is it some technicality? How do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is, right, there's so many things that you could change. And I draw a little bit of inspiration from American sports, in particular the NFL, where the referees explain what they're doing. Like they're mic'd up, and when they're making a call, they'll say, in like holding, like number 91, like grab this person's shirt like illegally, and that because of that, it's going to be like a 5-yard penalty, automatic first down, right? And so I'm not saying to do that, but there needs to be mechanisms in place that allow for transparency in terms of the decision making that the referees engage in during matches. I don't know whether that's having them mic'd up in real time or having them kind of like walk up to the monitor the way, NBA referees do and kind of explain exactly what they're doing before, like when they're reviewing and making, changed calls. I also like the idea of referees having to do post-match interviews and explain what they did and why they made certain decisions. I think if you put them under the burner like that on live television, I think a lot of referees will think twice about the decisions that they make these days. You could do a bunch of other things, but I think the main problem is the people who are serving as referees for the Premier League and representing the PGMOL. And I've banged on about this for a couple of years now. There's no diversity in that group. It's just a bunch of, unremarkable white men. And also a lot of them seem to be bald for some reason. And they all
as well.
And yeah, they I think like 2/3 of them come from Manchester, and it's just not representative, not even of England, but not even representative of the Premier League, of the people working and playing in it, of the fans. It feels like a boys' club is running the refereeing system in the Premier League. So I think if you're not going to tear down the entire organization and build it from scratch, what you need to do is, first of all, be harsher on referees. I particularly don't care, whether or not about being nice to them. That these are high stakes. The decisions they make. Yeah. It's their job, and it's the same standards that we hold players and managers to. If you mess up on a big enough scale, you're out. If you don't do your job, you're gone.
If a doctor, because some of these referees are getting paid £200,000 a year, maybe more. If a doctor on that salary messed up as bad as these referees are, they've killed someone. Killed someone. It's gross negligence, and what they're doing, they're not being held accountable for, as you said. And when you mentioned about them being pally with the boys' club, it was the Mike Dean came out recently and said, "Oh yeah, he felt like the ref had made a wrong decision, but he didn't want to get him in trouble or something, or he didn't want to make him look silly." And you think that is absolutely not how the game can be officiated. And the thing to me is VAR is absolutely not the problem. VAR is just allowing the referees to rewatch something. I don't understand how you can see a replay as something negative. All VAR has done is shown how incompetent referees and PGMOL are, because it's showing that it's not actually the fact that they didn't see it in real time the first time, because I can sympathize with that. Sometimes seeing something in real time first time is very difficult, but it's the fact that you can then watch a replay over and over again and still not see it. And that's what's crazy to me. And the offside thing was just the cream on top of the cake, because it wasn't where usually it's did it hit the sleeve, did it hit the shoulder, etc. It's binary. It's either yes or no, offside or not, and they just chose to ignore that. And then another one, I don't know if you saw the Matt Turner slide tackle Wissa today in the Brentford game. Absolute stonewall penalty that wasn't given. And it's no surprise nowadays. It just seems to keep on happening, and something needs to change at the very least.
And for me, what is most surprising is there seems to be more mistakes after VAR, or maybe it's getting highlighted more now that VAR is there, but it should not be the case. How can you make a mistake after rewatching it when common fans who don't get paid anything to do this job, they're able to identify it themselves. And people who are supposedly professionals, who have all the qualifications to do it, they're not able to, for some reason, find it out. So, yeah, I think the points you made were great, and I think the whole system has to be revamped. And I think beyond the point, going after individual referees is also like too tiring, because again, it's like if you're going to war with another country, it's not the soldiers that are the problem, but it's the people that take the decisions at the top that are the problem. So yeah, I think rather than looking at Mike Dean or Michael Oliver or any of these individual referees, I think you need to look at Howard Webb, the PGMOL, how they are structured. And to truly, I think, restructure an organization, you have to hit it at the top so that it just trickles down across all levels. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
think we're going to have these discussions every week, to be honest, because it's just never ending, really.
Yeah, and just to kind of put a bow, I think Howard Webb needs to be more scrutinized because I think we're kind of hitting a point where it just seems to be the case that he's fine sending apology letters and kind of
Mhm.
leaving it at that. And
Mhm.
I'm sorry, but this is the most competitive, the most the highest earning, probably the best in quality league in the world. You can't
Mhm.
just make these massive mistakes and be like, "Oh, sorry,
It's
here's a
fine, Sam. It's
letter."
fine. They get a week off next week. The refs, they've got a holiday. They don't have to referee next week. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's
that's
nice.
Paid leave. Wow.
that's their punishment. Is that all right? You can have the week off. Brilliant.
Yeah, like I just think they need to be a lot more ruthless with the people that make mistakes, and I think they need to open it up to referees from all over the world. Make it just as competitive as it is to be a player or a manager or a coach.
Mhm.
And I think the quality will drastically increase. And also, there won't be any of this buddy nonsense. All
Yeah.
right, some referee from Brazil isn't going to be like, well, this referee from Japan is my friend. No, they're going to be like, he fucked up. Like I'm going to correct him on live television because that's the correct thing to do. So
Yep, yep, 100%. Cannot agree more with that. And honestly, even watching the Euros a couple of years ago and the World Cup, I felt like the officiating was good, for the large part. And I didn't feel like, oh, these referees are making bad errors every game. I thought the officiating was top notch. And the fact that officiating didn't become a huge talking point shows that it went well. I think the lesser you talk about referees, it's the better, So, yeah, I think that's something hopefully that comes with the Premier League soon, because you can go back. I've been tweeting about this since I joined Twitter about how bad referees are. 2017, 2018, 2019, the same things over and over again. I myself am getting sick and tired of speaking about it. But
yeah,
honestly, what I saw this weekend was, oh my God, it was one of the worst officiating performances against the team I've ever seen. And I thought, yeah, we should touch upon that. But on that note, I would like to come back to Arsenal, and we're almost approaching the 1 hour mark. And since James, who's our special illustrious guest, also does not have too much time, I'd like to get back to Arsenal and ask one final question, which is on next week's massive clash against Manchester City. Now, I know if Mikel Arteta was in this, he would abuse me and be like, we have a match against Lens, we take it fucking game by game and whatnot. But we have a game next weekend, and I think all of us are thinking about that. I'm not taking the midweek game for granted because we have Champions League and we love seeing our team play. But this weekend is probably the biggest game Arsenal are playing since we played at the Etihad back in April. Arsenal have not beaten Manchester City in the Premier League since December of 2015. That's a long time ago, 15, 16. It's been 8 years since we beat them in the league, which is crazy. No team has dominated us like this, home and away. So obviously this weekend has to be the start of something new. Manchester City, they're going to be without Rodri. Arsenal, well, we hope Martinelli is back, but let's just assume the worst and assume that maybe it's going to be a bit short for him, and after the international break is going to be logical. Sham, I'd like to start off with you on this one. How do you want to approach the game against Man City? And assuming the same players are available, like as were available for Bournemouth, and there's no Martinelli, there's no Thomas Partey, what would your lineup be? What would your approach be? And how do we beat that ball fraud once and for all?
I was hoping you would say that I would have Thomas Partey available. Okay, well, I guess what I would do then is I'd probably start David Raya because I think that's been working so far. I don't have a problem with if we do decide to start Ramsdale there. I wouldn't have a problem with that. I just think um, yeah, I think Raya's just been working out pretty well for us so far, so I wouldn't really change that. But
Mhm.
yeah, so I'd go Raya and then I would start Tomiyasu at right back because I'm very worried about Jeremy Doku. And I think Ben White's an excellent player for us, and he's really important to how we attack and going forward and progressing the ball. But I think Doku's probably one of the biggest threats. I mean, outside of Holland, obviously, but I think Doku is going to be the second biggest threat they have on the pitch, and he's going to be a guy who has that pace, has that trickery, is going to cause a lot of trouble. And I want to put someone there who's going to keep him quiet over the
Mhm.
course of this game, and I think
Mhm.
that guy's Tomiyasu. And then I'd go Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko, Rice at 6, Odegaard left, right 8. Um, I think I would lean Kai Havertz left 8.
Mhm.
I like Havertz as a big game player, just
Mhm.
because his I think his confidence is increasing with every single game, and also I just think it's really important to have someone there who is going to win the duels, is going to put his foot in, is going to do the off the ball work. That's really important, and yeah, I kind of value his ability to do that over Vieira's and Smith Rose at this point in time. And then front three is probably Saka, Jesus, Nelson. I think that's the
Mhm.
front three that I would go with.
Mhm.
And yeah, I doubt that's what Arteta's going to do. I think Arteta's going to start White, and I think Arteta's going to start Nketiah at center forward and Jesus
Yep.
left wing again. But that's
Yep.
personally what I would do, just because I think it maximizes everybody. It solidifies that right back position,
Mhm.
and it allows us to be, in my opinion, as competitive as possible off the ball. And I think with City,
Mhm.
you kind of have to accept that. Well, not you have to accept, but I think you have to be prepared for a scenario in which you don't dominate possession and you don't have the ball. So
Yep.
I think that lineup is, um, adequately prepared to deal with that
Mhm.
situation.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with your team for the most part. Personally, I wouldn't play Tomiyasu. I would play him as left back and play Ben White as right back. Personally, I know a lot of people here love Zinchenko, but I'm still not convinced by him. And me and James, we're having a sort of argument. Well, I can't call it argument, but more of a difference in viewpoint on Zinchenko. James obviously thinks Zinchenko has been good defensively lately, and that seems to be the
Uh,
consensus.
I think good is an overstatement, maybe, but he is adequate defensively, and he is one of our most important players, if not our most important player on the ball. Um,
Mhm.
so I understand in certain game states that Tomiyasu has value there, but when Zinchenko is there, I think just to quickly whiz through my team, in the biggest games, you start your best players. I would go Zinni, Gabriel, Saliba, White, Rice, Havertz,
Sorry,
Odegaard,
you go Raya
Saka,
or Ramsdale, first of all.
Raya.
Mhm.
Um, and I would start Saka, Jesus, and Martinelli if he's fit, if not Trossard. Um,
Trossard's back
but
up. Yeah.
yeah, um, I just think you've got to start your strongest team. I understand the concept of trying to deal with Doku, but I think Tomiyasu hasn't. I can't remember the last time he played right back for us, but the last time I was impressed with him at right back has been a little bit longer. I think he's done
Yeah.
solid shifts at left back, solid shifts at centre back, but any time he's come into a right back for us, I think it's looked quite a lot worse. And you've got to consider as well with Tomiyasu, Saka looks a lot worse.
Yeah.
So we need, I don't know, I'd start our strongest team, but we'll see. Don't risk too many players versus Lons. I think our second team can give them a good game. And look, if we don't win that game, it's not the end of the world for me.
Yep. Yep. No, I agree with that. I think against Lens, you rotate a bit, maybe not to the extent we did in the Carabao Cup, but little bit at least change certain players. Ben White has played a lot, so maybe you rest him on a game like that. But I agree with you for the most part. Like I think Ben White should play as the right back. But for me, my change would be with the front three. I would play Kai Havertz down the middle. I really like how he played against them in the
True.
Community Shield. I thought he was really good. The way he occupied the centre backs, was winning the duels. He gave Arsenal like a nice exit. They didn't always have to play out from the back. And I would go Rice as the left eight, Jorginho at 6, and Odegaard right central midfield. And apart from that, I think my team would be the same as yours, the back four. But no, good headaches to have for sure. We have some options. It's good that we're having that debate because a few seasons ago, if Tomiyasu was our first choice right back, if he was not that, was Cedric, and we would never have this debate of should Cedric start in the game. So it's good that we're actually like sitting here and having this conversation. Nice headaches to have. And yeah, the nerves are going to be really high as the week goes by. But these are the moments we live for, and hopefully Arsenal manage to win the game and go a point ahead of Man City. So yeah, this would bring me to the end of the pod, bring us to the end of the pod rather. And I'd really like to thank you guys for joining me. Thank you, James, for joining us again.
No
I
problem.
know
Enjoyed it, boys.
I know you were on the pod before once, but that was just an audio pod. But it's really nice to meet you face to face, virtually, and yeah, on the back of a nice win. So hopefully we carry this form on. You can follow the podcast at This Week in Arsenal on Twitter. You can follow myself, Sash, at LT Arsenal. You can follow James at AFCJXMES. Keep that in mind, please. And you can follow Sham at Shamsdale. It's been a pleasure, guys. Have a superb week ahead, and you'll join us once we have defeated Manchester City on Saturday. We'll be reviewing the game, so we'll be reviewing an amazing Arsenal win, which sees us take the title back from Man City. So, on that note, take care. Thank you.
Bye, guys.